Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at a preview for what's coming next patch, which is next week, 11/18. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Check out the patch notes from this patch, and check out the support tier list if you're interested from this patch as well. 11/17. Both of those are up on the channel. And then come by, check us out live on stream on Twitch, starting every night around 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, usually going till about 2:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a very friendly, chill community. I try to be as conversational as possible while I'm playing. If you want to talk about League or anything else that suits your fancy, I'm happy to hang out and chat with you. So come by, check us out, and you can always catch the replays on Twitch as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So there are a lot of changes coming on this patch, and a lot of really interesting ones. So I kind of like what they're doing with many of these changes, and I'm glad they're not afraid to shake it up, you know, before Worlds comes in. And they did say explicitly over here that this is primarily targeted for Worlds, but there are some things, I think, for solo queue that'll be very relevant as well. And then there's going to be one more patch, 11/19, before Worlds as well. So they're really trying to shake it up a bit. So what are they doing? All right, Predator. So they are changing the ramp-up time from 1.5 seconds to 1 second, and they're making it from 45% to 60%. I think this is good. No one gets Predator anymore. They nerfed the damage a long time ago, and I like that they are focusing more on the utility of the rune. And I think they need to do a lot more of that with the items and with the runes, and not just make everything a stat check. I think there should be some items, and there should be some runes that have lower baseline effectiveness, lower guaranteed power with the stats, but they have much higher upside if played well, if utilized well by certain champions. So I think that Predator is a great example of this. Now, will it actually get used? I'm not sure. Like, maybe Hecarim is someone who has liked Predator a lot in the past. A big problem is it still has that alert where people know that it's coming in, so it makes the noise and you have the icon over your head. I really wish they would get rid of that and in exchange, you know, balance it around that so that people could still have the secrecy on roams. Because I think it could be interesting on even like some roaming supports if it didn't have that notice. But there is also just so much mobility already in the game that I'm not sure that it's worth it to give up that. And there's like the stuff in that tree is pretty good as well, but the Conquer tree is just so strong, right? You have Conquer, you have Triumph, you have the Tenacity rune, and then you have the damage amplification possibilities at the bottom of that tree. So I don't know. Nunu has also done some Predator in the past. Possibly Pike might like Predator, but I just don't know. I mean, maybe someone like, would Darius like this, right? Like, he really likes Ghost. Would he like something like this to close the gap? So maybe some immobile champions, especially that have really high kill threat and don't necessarily need a ton of extra damage, maybe they'd be interested in something like this. So then, you know, you could have Ghost plus Predator as someone like a Darius who can get in there. So, I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely a lot better. I mean, 60% is very different from 45% movement speed. Like, you're going to get on them. With Predator, it's just a matter of, okay, it still doesn't do nearly as much damage as some other runes, so will it be worth it or not? Okay, Umbral Glaive. This one's definitely a big buff for a lot of, especially support AD champions. So they're taking it down 200 cost to make it 2,400 gold, which is what it was originally when it was pretty good last year. And they're dropping the lethality by 2. Deal. Like, every day of the week. You know, the main strength of this item is that it helps you clear wards much easier. So someone like Senna's going to like this. And the fact that it needs to be lower in price point to match the Enchanter and the tank items. And that's been a huge problem with a lot of DPS supports, whether it's mages or AD champions, is they're just, like, there just aren't a lot of good options for, like, items that you can get because everything's just too expensive. It's just not on an Enchanter budget, or it's not on a support budget. So how do you balance that? How do you make items that would be useful for supports that other roles would not necessarily want? Because you don't want your mid laners and your top laners able to buy 2,400 gold items or it's just gonna hurt. It's just gonna hurt the ecosystem. It's gonna be too strong. So they've kind of been dealing with that a little bit with that shield breaker item. I think they dropped the price down to 2,600, and stuff like Kayn and other champs are just getting it every time just because it's cheap. It lets you power spike faster, and it's still cost efficient. So that's been a struggle for a long time with how do you make these items effective. You know, one way they have done it is kind of the partnered system to where you have to be near someone else to get it to work. When you think about like Zeke's or Ardent Sensor, Knight's Vow, you know, that's a way that they've tried to make tank items that are intended for supports only like really useful for supports. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this, if this might entice, you know, other like junglers to get this item. But the other items like the not Bloodthirster, I'm blanking out, Gore Drinker and Sterix and all this other stuff is so strong that I think a lot of people just aren't going to want just a plain lethality item. So maybe only supports will get this. But obviously someone like Pyke is really going to love this. Senna, if you see Pantheon support potentially get played some, maybe he likes that. So there definitely are some champs that would be in the market for that. I'm just not sure if anyone else would be. And those champs aren't like super great in the meta right now overall. So I think it's a good move. I hate going against that item as a support, but it is like one of the only things that AD champs have going for them. So AD supports. So I guess that's fine. Aphelios to AD, okay, whatever. I mean, AD ratio, that does matter on him. But I don't think he's too overwhelming in the meta right now, and he has a lot of utility. So I think he'll be fine. Ashe losing 4 seconds on W. I think this is actually a pretty big deal because I believe Ashes aren't maxing W right now with the current builds. I think they're maxing Q. I could be wrong about that, but this won't matter too much if you're maxing W like early on. You won't be able to spam it as much, but you'll probably run out of mana spamming it anyways early. But this will matter. If you're Q maxing, then you're going to have a lot less W for a large portion of the game. So I personally don't think Ashe is too over the top right now. Like, she's okay. Her win rate's pretty good, but I think she has some pretty clear vulnerabilities. So, okay, I guess. I really don't think she's... They said it's for pro. I don't think she's that oppressive in pro. I mean, am I wrong about that? But I feel like just nobody plays her if this is supposed to be a pro patch. Now, just because it's a pro patch doesn't mean you can't balance some stuff in solo queue. Yeah, I mean, she's 48% in pro with 39% presence. So they need to be nerfing. I mean, I guess Varus does have a lower win rate on this patch, but Varus is really the one that I think has been dominating pro. At least everyone's playing him. It's only a 68% presence, though, so it's like he is getting played, but it's not like an overwhelming number. But yeah, Ashe, yeah, 42% this last patch, so I don't know. In solo queue, she's okay, but I go ahead and close that out, I guess. Tier list. But sure. Okay, Camille is getting her passive nerfed in the early game by 4 seconds. Okay, so that's going to make it harder for her to trade. Probably fine. She's pretty strong in pro. Jace, 2 AD. Okay, the meme nerf, but maybe it matters. Kalista... Her knockup is only 1 second now instead of 1.5 at level 6. That's a really huge deal. Depending on who she's paired with, but that's half second that you're losing on the CC. But she still has all of her damage impact intact, all of her, mobility and early game pressure. So she'll probably still be pretty good, especially against teams that just don't have a great way to stick to her, where she can just kind of kite in team fights all day. Her win rate's not phenomenal, and she's pretty bad in solo queue, especially under Diamond. So again, I'm not really sure why they're nerfing her. It's because in pro, she's not too overwhelming. But anyways, let's see what else they have. So sure, Lee Sin, base AD is going down by 2. Okay, I think he'll still be good. Now, he does have a lot of abilities that have really high scaling based on AD, especially his Q, so that does matter, but he'll still probably be pretty good. Renekton, empowered stun, 1 second. Now, that's pretty massive, because a lot of times how Renekton will get used is you'll try to stun somebody, for the jungler to come in and follow up, right? Like, kind of famously with the Nidalee Spear, like Nidalee Renekton has been a really potent combo over the last year or so. So that's going to make it a lot harder to land that. So I still think Renekton will probably be pretty good, but that's definitely going to knock him down a peg. Again, he's not too overwhelming. He's only 51%. Camille is extremely strong. But yeah, that's a good trade-off. If you're Camille and, you know, if the same champions keep getting played top, sure, I would trade a little bit, I think, on the passive for Renekton not having as long of a stun. But anyways, that's a big nerf. Now, Thresh. I really don't like to see Thresh get nerfed. He hasn't even been that dominant in Pro. If we look at 11-15, like... I mean, okay. He's pretty good on 11-15. I mean, I don't personally play Thresh. I just think he's a really interesting champion to watch. Really interesting champion to play against and to play. I don't win a lot with him, but he's fun to play. So, I don't know. I just don't like seeing him nerfed. I feel like there are a lot of really good answers to him in the meta. In the sense of, like, Braum. I think Rakan's okay into him. But he did really well on 11-15. On 11-16, he's only 36%. It's a much lower sample size, but I don't know. Okay, so the base movement speed's actually really huge. Because of, you know, how he wants to position, especially in the early game, to get that open up with the Flay, if you can. And then the E bonus max damage is pretty significant in the early game especially. Now, it does scale better into late game. It's 1.5 per soul. So it will do more damage late game, but losing effectively, you know, 25% damage on your E is going to hurt your all-ins. So he'll still be playable, but it's definitely going to be a little rough, especially before he gets those Moby Boots. Once he gets Moby Boots, the 5 movement speed doesn't matter probably as much. This will definitely hurt if he goes for Ionians instead of Moby Boots. It'll matter more. But because there's a soft cap on movement speed anyways, you know, maybe it's not going to matter as much later on. But it'll definitely hurt like his level 2 Flash Flay all-ins. Trundle support the E slow. If you're maxing Pillar, it's going from 60% to 46%. I think he'll still be pretty good in the places where he is good. Again, I don't think he's like ultra dominant right now. He did have a 57% win rate, but it was only 7 picks on this last patch, the 11-16. And then 11-15, he had 52%. So he's specifically good against Nautilus because his Pillar can block Nautilus's hook. And if you're pretty good with that Pillar, you can knock people out of the sky, so you can stop mobility. You know, if Tristana's trying to jump, you can knock her out of the sky, or Jarvan trying to flag and drag. And he's very good against Aftershock champs, too. So, particularly those tanks, right? Like Leona or Nautilus. Whenever they go for the Aftershock, that's when you use your ult on them. And it takes a certain percentage of all of their armor and magic resist, and it snapshots it. So it still keeps that flat amount, even when Aftershock falls off. So that's why he's so good in Aftershock champ. So just for example, just easy numbers, if, let's say Nautilus normally has 100 armor and 100 magic resist, he triggers Aftershock, he goes to 200 armor, 200 magic resist. If Trundle's R steals 25% of those stats, then he's going to steal 50, right? He's going to steal 50 armor and 50 magic resist because it's going to check when the Nautilus is at 200, 200. Then when Aftershock falls off, Trundle still has that 50 stolen. So now it's reducing him from 100 armor down to 50 armor. So it's taking half of his resistances now instead of just 25% because it checked when the Aftershock was in place. And that's particularly good against Leona, too, because Leona's W plus Aftershock is a lot of extra resistances. So that's why he's getting played. It's because of the interaction with Aftershock and just how good he is against Nautilus. And he's pretty good against other tanks in general, just because he can melt people. And then the Pillar does make it very annoying to have to run around, especially in choke points. It's pretty good. And the knock-up is solid as well if you have champions that are that care about a knockup, right? The point click with like a Yasuo or a Samira or anything like that can be pretty useful. So pretty good against brawlers. He doesn't have a lot of hard CC though, so if they have an assassin or something that you really need to lock down and kill, that could be problematic. Or someone who's immune to slows, someone like a Master Yi, that can be problematic. But in a lot of matchups, especially against other tanks, he can be pretty useful. Okay, so I guess they're nerfing Trundle a little bit. He'll still be okay. Varus, attack speed when you kill a minion is going down to 10%. Who cares? When you kill a champion, it's fine. So what? He attacks a little bit slower during the laning phase. That's not why people are picking him. People are picking him because he has really strong poke off of his Q, which is not really getting touched. And his ultimate is on a fairly low cooldown and is very disruptive in team fights. Like, that's why people are picking him. So, yeah, just his trading pattern, you're not looking, I don't think, to say, okay, I just killed a minion with my passive, let's go fight right now. You know? I mean, maybe at, like, really high-end play, maybe that comes up in, like, the really early levels, but I don't think that's going to matter too much, especially for solo queue people. The -2 AD does kind of matter because, again, you know, his arrow scales pretty well with AD, but I think past the really early levels, it's not going to matter. And he's not really an early game dominant champion either. He's okay, but it's really, you know, once he gets a couple of items, that's when he starts sort of taking off with his poke and his ultimate in the mid to late game. So he should still be fine. Dr. Mundo, Q max damage to monsters is gaining 50 to 100. So I'm not sure how much that matters. That's obviously going to help his clear. His R heals for 20% of his missing HP. Now he gains 15, 20, 25%. I'm assuming that's when he activates his R. I haven't read Mundo in a long time. But this is actually a really big deal because that's going to help him bypass grievous wounds partially. Because basically, it sounds like it's like a Lulu ult, where he's just going to get, you know, 20% of his missing health just as an instant heal that's not affected by grievous wounds. So that's going to help him out a little bit. And then his R max healing, max HP healing is going up a little bit over time. So that'll make him good. I thought he was already, like, okay. They may have nerfed him a few patches ago, but I think when they reworked him, he was already, like, getting played some in top and maybe in the jungle. So if this helps him against grievous wounds, he could be pretty decent here. Draven. Now, this one's an interesting one. The R hits on enemy champions that would leave their current HP below Draven's League of Dragons stack count will execute them. So basically, if he hits somebody with the ult, if he has like 300 stacks, if they're at 300 health or less, it's going to instantly kill him, and he's going to cash in all of his stacks. I think that's a really awesome change for Draven. It adds a little extra mini game with his ultimate. It pairs really well with like Dark Harvest and these lethality builds. I think now it's going to be a little weird with the Collector. Because it doesn't do any extra damage. Like, the R is not doing the amount of damage of your League of Draven. It's just saying, if they're at that number, they just die. Right? Kind of like the Collector. So, the Collector build might get a little worse there, but I'm not sure if that's even the best build on him right now. But anyways, I think that's good. I think there's some good changes. Okay. Gangplank. So he's getting a little more HP, so 30 extra HP and then 8 extra HP per level. They're trying to make up for the fact that they nerfed his tankiest build with Grasp during the laning phase, but also with Divine Sunder. He'll still be like okay in pro, I think. I'm not sure how much that Grasp has hurt him. Obviously, that's a big deal because he was gaining like full health and dealing full damage and healing for the full amount with Grasp before. Yeah, he's not doing so well. He's kind of out of the meta, so I don't know. I think Gangplank is an interesting champ, so that nerf was pretty brutal. So I guess they can buff him up. I still think he's not going to be that great in solo queue though. Jinx. Okay, so she can spam Q earlier, so that's going to give her better wave clear. I think Jinx is already pretty good, especially if you put her with an enchanter, and they're doing a lot to try to buff enchanters with the Moonstone buffs, and they're buffing Soraka now. They've buffed Sona recently. They buffed Nami, so Jinx is going to be very good in scenarios where you can peel and protect her, so giving her even better priority early on, I think, is going to help a lot. I mean, 4 mana doesn't sound like a lot, but just look at it percentage-wise. Early on, it's going to cost 25% less mana to use her Qs, so that's pretty good. Kog'Maw's E, like, AP ratio. Why? Why are you trying to bait people to play AP Cog? I guess just to bring out the YOLO Q and everybody, because this is going to bait everyone to try AP Cog, and I feel like it's so bad compared to other poke mages that are available. But, okay, coming to a solo queue near you, 0-10, mid AP Cog, so get ready for that. Okay, Misfortune. Sorry if people like AP Cog out there. I really don't think this is going to be good most of the time. I mean, maybe. He is, like, skill expressive. Like, you do have to land those R's to make him work. So, I guess he's kind of interesting. But, okay. That does help his wave clear tremendously, because his E is that puke that he throws out. So, that could help you wave clear a lot faster and give you more poke. So, I mean, if he comes back into the meta, if he's, like, relevant, I think he's, you know, potentially an interesting champion. He has pronounced weaknesses, right, with his lack of mobility. But if it's just a bait, if it just gets people to play something that's still going to be pretty bad, I don't know. It seems kind of rough. Okay, Misfortune. So, 2 extra waves. I mean, that matters if someone sticks in it the entire time. You know, that's an extra, 14% damage or so? So, okay, I guess that's cool. Morgana, her E is going down by 2 seconds. I feel like Morgana is okay in the meta. She is what she is. It's like really, really long cooldowns, but she has 2 very powerful abilities with her E and her Q. So I guess this is okay. I don't like to see that because personally, you know, I like to play engaged champions a lot of times as a support. But I guess she could use a little love. I think that she's still over 50% win rate though, so I don't know. Sure. Singed R causes all damage to apply Grievous Wounds. So that's kind of cool that he gets free Grievous Wounds because it is really hard for him to buy Grievous Wounds. You know, he really doesn't want to go Morello or Thornmail. So, okay, since everyone has to have access to Grievous Wounds because there's an insane amount of healing out there, I guess that's fine. There are other options. Like nerfing the healing so everyone doesn't have to buy Grievous Wounds. But we'll see if Riot ever figures that one out. Okay, R clears Grievous Wounds from the target. Okay, so Soraka has, you know, had a lot of collateral damage this season done to her, where everyone's just buying Grievous Wounds because of Gore Drinker and Conquer and, you know, just all of this other nonsense that constantly heals people for a billion. Shield Bow, just everybody has Grievous Wounds. And that was her specialty, was healing. That's almost all that she did. She has a small silence, but everything else is like, she's all in on healing. So when healing is effectively getting nerfed really hard with the itemization, then she's getting nerfed. Right, so it's basically just like everybody just hard counters Soraka for free because they're already buying Grievous Wounds to deal with the Viego, right? So, okay, now it's removing Grievous Wounds and you get a full heal off with your R. So that's pretty big. I mean, if tanks ever come back into the meta, she could be very, very strong. So, because she's the biggest beneficiary of Moonstone, too. So, we'll see. My instinct is that I would still rather play something like Sona if you want a team fighter enchanter right now. But, that's definitely going to help her out. Okay, and we've got Talia. These are huge buffs on Talia. So the Q cast on Worked Ground, refund 50% of your CD. So if you do want to just throw out a little bit of poke with your Q, then you should be able to just keep machine gunning those out, basically. And Worked Ground radius is going down to 300. So that means you're going to have 30% more radius that you can put out during the laning phase, especially. Because, like, how Talia works, if you don't know this, whenever she casts her Q, it does a lot of damage if she hits all 3 stones, but it leaves this debuff on the ground where you can't cast it with all 3 stones again for, like, a long time. And so the game with her is you have to constantly, you know, keep moving around and casting the Q from different spots to avoid that debuff. Well, now that the radius is much smaller, you're going to have much more workable area where you can get those really huge Q hits. So that's a very, very big deal. And they're changing the duration of worked grounds from 45 seconds to 25 seconds. So again, this is going to open up a ton of extra space for her to operate. So this might bring her back into mid lane, potentially. I don't know all of her numbers. Maybe as a support. But I'm not sure. I mean, I think AP supports are still kind of in a bad spot, but I know she was played, I think, as either an ADC or a support with different combinations. I think people played her with Pantheon. It was like Talia ADC with Pantheon support. It's kind of cheese one-shot people, so I don't know. Maybe you could see stuff like that. Maybe she turns into like an AP carry in the bot lane. That'd be interesting to kind of spice up the meta a little bit. Okay, and then Twitch, his R, he gets 10 extra AD. That's actually really massive early on with Twitch. So I think Twitch isn't even that bad right now. He's not played a lot, but I mean, I guess his win rate's probably not stellar, but I think he's definitely has the potential to be pretty strong. Urgot, a little bit less mana. Okay, I'm not really sure what's up with Urgot, why he's so bad. I mean, he can't really get Sterix top lane. I guess he's not fantastic with Gore Drinker either, so he just doesn't work like super well with a lot of the meta items. I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to change that, but okay. Yonei, you get 50% extra shield per champion hit. Now, I'm not super familiar with Yonei and what that is that gives him that shield. I think that's just his little conal swipe, right? So that's going to obviously help him out a lot in team fights. If he swipes multiple people with that conal swipe, then he's going to get like some big, big shields. So that's good. Again, I don't think Yonei's horrible right now. I think he's okay if you're good on him. So that seems like a really huge buff for team fights with Yonei. And then Yuumi, the passive is going down by 4 seconds early, so that's going to allow you to trade a lot more aggressively. You're still going to be pretty bad, though, in the early game, but now you can really just spam those Qs over and over and over again, because you're going to be able to get your mana back faster. So that's useful. Zed's passive now deals 100% bonus damage against monsters. If it currently does 0 and now it's doing 100, that could help out his clear quite a bit. They've really been trying to make stuff like Zed and Talon into junglers for like a year and a half. So, okay, I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. But sometimes, you know, some of these like wave clear in the jungle things can really like change the meta a lot. Look at Diana, for example, right? They improved just how fast she clears, and all of a sudden she became a little viable. So, okay, sure. I'm not entirely sold that he's going to be great in the jungle, but maybe. Okay, Zoe, 4 seconds early on her E. I believe that's her sleep. Let's see. Her Q is obviously her little comet thing. Yeah, the W is where you steal enemy like items and summoners, and then the E is her sleep. So yeah, you get to throw more bubbles, look for more picks. I believe you max that second, I think. So, okay. Zoe's really annoying when she's very good, so I'm not going to like that change if she becomes like super meta again, but she is kind of an interesting champ in the fact that you can dodge her stuff. She just throws so much of it, but she is relatively immobile as well, so you definitely can catch her out. So she's an interesting champ to have in the meta, I suppose, as long as she's not 10-0 on the enemy team and is constantly raining down Qs and one-shotting everybody. Okay, and then adjustments. Fizz, his passive damage reduction is increased, so now basic attacks do less damage to him, which should help him in the laning phase. His W on hit damage is higher. Okay. So his sustained damage is a bit higher. His R guppy damage is significantly lower. So that's the really close one. I think that's like the 0 to 300 range or something. Like the point blank is lower. Wait, hold on. Let me see. Okay, the grammar on this is horrible. Okay, so it's getting changed to okay, so it's going to 70% AP, and it's losing 50 at max range. Chomper, which is the mid-range one, is getting nerfed a lot by 75, and the Gigalodon is getting turbo nerfed by like 100. Why are they nerfing the high skill? Like, I could understand why they would nerf the point blank one, but it seems like you would want him to get rewarded for hitting a max range fish, because that's hard to do. So, I mean, what are they going for here? They want him to go back to, like, this bruiser Fizz that was, like, so problematic maybe 5 years ago, and just, you know, turn him into some kind of, I don't even know what he would get, like Gnasher's Tooth Fizz or something. I don't know what the goal is here. I think him, like, so Fizz's problem, so the big thing is his E, right, where he goes untargetable and can bypass a lot of different mechanics. And then if he has a really high percentage chance to kill somebody just by using his E to gap close onto them, spam all of his abilities, hit them with a point blank fish and they're dead, that's toxic. That's difficult to deal with because you can't target him. So they tried to get around that by saying, okay, you have to hit a max range fish first. And then if you hit a max range fish, you can probably one-shot him with your E. But you got to hit the fish first. So that's what I would change. If they think he's too consistent, I would nerf the point blank guppy so that he has to hit the max range fish. I thought that was a decent way to balance him. Or make it to where his E he doesn't go untargetable. That it's just a gap closer, right? And I don't know how you would balance that. You could so sort of like a Jarvan flag and drag type of thing where people can interact with him. Now, that would take away a lot of the fun and uniqueness out of his kit if they did that. That would allow a lot more counterplay, and then they could just increase his damage options. But I think the Playful Trickster, him going untargetable, does make him unique. But yeah, I don't like the changes. I just think turning him into a sustained damage dealer is probably bad. Because no one wants to sit there and just auto-attack a bunch with Fizz in a fight. I mean, I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but my initial instinct is this is not a good way to go, balance-wise, with him. Okay, Kiana, getting way more attack speed early on. Base HP regen is down. Deals extra damage to monsters. Okay, so they want her to be back in the jungle. And then the E damage is going down by 10. Okay, so again, kind of like Fizz, it looks like they're encouraging her to do more sustained damage instead of one-shot people, which I guess they need better items to like work with this. If they want people to do more sustained damage, they need something other than Gnasher's Tooth to help out champions who want to do that. I mean, I guess they do have the one mythic item that does that as well, where its damage ramps up over time and you're encouraged to stay in combat. I don't know. I guess you have Demonic as well, which encourages you to stay in combat. So I don't know, maybe there are enough tools. You know, maybe you could see, like, Demonic Fizz with the, I don't know, the other stuff. Now, Kiana is, she's AD, so I guess there are more, like, bruisery AD options if you wanted to see, like, a Gore Drinker, Sterix, Kiana or something. Again, I just don't think that's a good direction to go in, but okay. Well, Leah, base regen is going from 1.5 to 0.5. Okay, probably doesn't matter. That'll hurt lane Lilia top a little bit, but it's already such a low number. Passive, large monster healing. Okay, so she heals more now off of hitting monsters, and her passive duration is up. I'm not 100% about... Wait a minute, the passive is the burn over time, right? So I guess when she burns monsters, then it heals her in the jungle. But it being up by 1 second, that's going to affect how much damage it deals to champs too, right? By a lot. It's like almost 20% extra damage if it has a longer burn. And that keeps reapplying. I believe that burn would keep reapplying something like Demonic Embrace or Leandry's. So that's actually quite significant. And then the ECD is going down from 18 to 16. I don't remember what that is. If that's her ball that she throws, that doesn't matter too much. It's not her Q, because that's the circle swipe thing. So it's either the ball that she throws or like the slam that does a lot of damage. If it's the slam, maybe that can be relevant in team fights if she gets off 2 of those. Right? If she has enough CDR to get that down to like 10 seconds. So that might matter, but I think that passive lasting longer actually can be like really, really huge. It feels like that's going to be a lot of extra damage. So yeah, pretty big buffs. So maybe a slight nerf to top lane Lilia, but definitely a buff for jungle Lilia. Okay, Rumble. I think she's an interesting champ to have in the meta, so I like that. Rumble passive, the attack speed is going down on his R, or on his passive, based on level, but his WCD, which is his shield, goes down to 6 seconds. It just seems so weird. I don't know, like, nobody plays Rumble right now. I do like that they're buffing his W a little bit. I thought Jungle Rumble was very interesting for the meta overall. I think there need to be more mages. Okay. I guess that's fine. They need to, they don't want to give him too much more damage. He does have a lot of damage, so I guess giving him, like, better survivability is okay. Talon, Q base damage is going down a lot at later levels. I'm pretty sure you max Q first. That's his rake, I think. That's his blades back and forth. And then the W now deals 50% bonus damage to monsters. Wait, is his W? Maybe his W is the rake. I can't remember. He's one of those, like, old design champions where, like, the Q, the W, and the E aren't, like, super intuitive. The E is the wall jumping utility spell. The Q might be the gap closer, where you jump on top of them and deal damage, and the W is the rake. I think that's what it is. Okay, so your Q does less damage. So I'm pretty sure you max W first, though. Okay, so he's going to be better in the jungle, but worse at all-in killing people, which doesn't seem like a great trade-off to me. So yeah, they're nerfing him, even though, like, I don't know, like, almost nobody plays Talon this day and age, but anyways, so interesting changes. Some of them are kind of duds, kind of head scratchers, like, why? Why are they changing these champs? But some of them are pretty cool. So I think the biggest ones that could potentially impact the meta, Umbral Glaive matters. Predator, maybe on some champs. Ophelio probably doesn't matter. Ashe probably doesn't matter. Camille is going to be a pretty decent hit to her. Jace probably doesn't matter. Kalista doesn't matter. Lee doesn't matter. Renekton, huge nerf. Thresh, moderate nerf. Trundle probably doesn't matter. Varus doesn't matter. Mundo, I'm not sure. That could actually make him really good. Draven, excellent change. Probably won't affect his win rate too much. Gangplank, still bad. Jinx, still really good. Buff probably doesn't matter. Oh, I forgot the Kaiser ECD. At later ranks, you max that second. And I missed Karma as well. Okay, so the Kaiser... okay, sure. I think should still be like okay, but not insane. Karma, armor's going up by 2. Okay, whatever. The E shield is bigger, so they just really want her to have, like, huge shields. Now, it does matter some because your empowered shield, that's going to make that even bigger. So, big shields, but still unreliable CC. I still don't think she's going to be that great. That might help her in solo lanes, ironically enough. Maybe she gets played more top with that. Kog'Maw, interesting change, but probably just a bait. Misfortune, okay, that helps. Morgana helps a little bit. Singed, interesting change. Soraka, potentially really huge buff. Talia, massive buff. Twitch, big buff. Yonei, huge buff for team fights. Yuumi, probably doesn't matter that much. Zed, probably doesn't matter. Zoe, probably doesn't matter, but could be useful. And then I don't think these down here. The Lilia one could be huge, But I don't think the other ones are probably going to matter that much. I mean, massive nerf to Fizz, I think. But anyways, they're definitely shaking it up. Some stuff's going to change. You throw that many changes in there, something is going to come out of this meta. So anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.